Alright, welcome back to another web development video where I show you how to make modern websites using HTML5, CSS3, and a little bit of JavaScript. In this video, we're going to continue the series of web development basics inside of a no-code platform like Webflow. And so in the first video we covered semantic tags and how to find those in the interface. And in the last video we talked about IDs, which are the hashtags that we can use for targeting specific elements either with JavaScript later on, or I showed you how to do jump links from one part of the page to the other. In this video we're going to cover something similar. So it's a type of selector, but it's called a class. Now classes are different than IDs. IDs you can only have one unique ID on the page, on each particular page. So you could have the same ID on another page to a different element, but you can't have two of the same IDs. Those are unique, very specific selectors. Classes, you can have as many classes on the page as you want, and they're meant to create a more efficient way to style your documents. The way that CSS works, it works from sort of the baseline elements, and you style those first, and then it goes in level of specificity down to the individual class names. So a tag like a nav or a header or a p tag or an li tag, those are sort of worth more in terms of when the computer has to choose which style to apply. Those are worth more than a class. They're worth more than an ID or a class. An ID is worth more than a class, but less than a tag. So if you have a style on a tag and the computer has to make a choice as to how to apply that style, it's going to often choose the tag as opposed to just the individual class, unless that class is applied to the same tag. So a little confusing. Classes take a little bit of work to understand, but hopefully I can show you just some basics of doing styling using classes. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to style these H1s. So we have a heading for each of our main sections, and what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take and copy this one too. So I've just sort of made copies. I'm just going to do Control C. I'm going to put it up in this section here and move it before the navigation. So this is going to be our site name. Let's call it logo. Okay. Because we want the logo to have a different style than all the rest of our H1 elements. And the way that we do that is, so if we come down and we say we want them to be can we call them H1? Let's see here. Okay, well, that's not how that works. I thought it was a little bit different. Okay, well, we're gonna, because it gives specific, let's see, okay, there we go. So we got to kind of get it on the right thing here. you can see that we're affecting all H1 headings. Let's see if that actually, there we go. Okay, so you can see now that we're affecting all H1 headings so that they all have the same style. Now the way you do that is up here. That's not right. Okay, where I was up here where it says all H1 settings, because regularly you click to create a new class. But here it's talking about the HTML tag, and then these are classes that are created sort of automatically by Webflow. And every time you give a name to something or you put something on the page, it gives it a specific class. Now the class is section, this is section 2, and this is section 3, right? Our footer is section 3. And it automatically applies those classes, but those don't mean anything to us. I mean, it does if you're looking at it right here, but if you were to look at the page, what in the world does section 2, section 3, what does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. But if you want to affect all H1 headings, which is what we have on the page, and we can give particular styles to all the H1 headings. So let's say we want them all to be 45 pixels large, and we want them to have 1.5 for our, let's just say 1.5 for our line height. And so that's something that we want for all of our H1 tags. Doesn't matter. We want them all to be a particular color, and for this color we're going to say that they're all going to be red, just so that it's easy to see. And we want them to be, let's see, oh, we've moved here. That's not what we're looking for. So we moved off of our selectors. If you go here, should be able to get back to our style manager. Allows us to does it allow us to click off on those? It doesn't. Okay, so let's go here, and we're still working on all of our H1 headings, and they're all going to be bold. They're all going to be let's say Montserrat. Okay, so all of our headings are the same, and those styles are being applied to the H1 element, not to any classes or IDs or anything like that. So if we come to our logo, but we want our logo to be all uppercase and maybe a little bit smaller. So we come to our logo, we click on the logo. You can see that that's what we're clicked on here. And we're going to give it a class of logo. So as soon as we do that, this logo class gets added to our H1. And when we make a change to our logo, let's say we only want that to be 27 pixels. The logo is still an H1 element, but now logo is different than the rest of these. It takes on the same styles that we had before, the red, Montserrat. If we were to change, you can see that if we change these, then it changes our logo font because it's only been tagged with this specific logo. Hopefully that makes sense. And we want it to be all caps. So we come down, click on all caps, and we want it to be just maybe light, and let's make it 24 instead. Okay, so our logo is fundamentally different than the rest of our H1s, even though it remains an H1. And you can see that they're all H1s, right? So they're all heading 1s, but this particular heading 1 is different because it has a class of logo. Now if we remove this class, then you can see that it goes back to being just a regular old H1. Okay, So let's just go back to that. We want to save that. And if we came down to here, and we can see that these are the existing classes that either Webflow has made or we have created ourselves. We've created the logo, and so if I click here and I add that to this footer one, it gives us the same exact style as this logo here, right? Because we've added the class of logo. And when we remove it, then it takes back the style of our H1s. So there are things that we can do if we add what's called a combo class. We can create another set of rules, CSS rules, for this particular logo. So let's say we want to do a distinction between the logo header and the logo footer. So we say logo header, and we come down, and for our footer we're going to add the class of logo as well. That way we can see the difference between the two. So our logo styles, and you can see all the styles that are affected here. So it gets the body, all the elements get the body, so whatever happens on the body affects everything. It has an H1 specific heading, and so it takes on the styles of all the H1s, and then specifically it takes on a logo style, and then even more specifically it's a logo, but logo header, which is more specific than just logo. So you can see the different selectors that it's inheriting. So let's say the one up here, we want to add letter spacing. So let's just say 3 pixels. Okay. Let's make it more pronounced than that. Okay. So now this logo has the logo class, but it also has a more specific class, which is logo header. If we come down, this one only has the logo class. It doesn't have logo header. And let's say we wanted to add one. We can add an existing class. So anything where we created a combination class with logo, we can choose to do that. So if we click that, you can see that we get our extreme letter spacing styles. And when we remove it, it goes back to only taking on our logo styles. Okay, so you can see that we're creating more specificity on the elements. And so let's say for the logo footer, we'll create that class, and then instead of a light, we want to go with a black. Okay, so now we have our logo up here with our logo header. We have our logo here with our logo, but logo footer. This one is 900 font weight black, and then this one up here is a 300 font weight, which is light, and it includes this extra styling of the letter spacing. If we were to remove this class, it would go back to our sort of default logo treatment without the spacing, right? And without the black. Same thing happens here. If we remove this class, then we get this spacing here. So what this does is it allows us to create sort of some base styles. You see this a lot with buttons. So there's sort of a base button style. And then let's say you want to have an inverted button. So you want a button, but you want it on a dark background as opposed to a light background. And you want the background to be a lighter color than just black. You would create sort of a general button style that all buttons have, you know, specific padding or font weight or whatever that you want. And then you would create sort of a button inverse or dot inverse, and so it would be button dot inverse, and then you would do your specific styles for that inverse, which we can see that in motion very easily. We can just take a button and can put it here. So we have our button that go to the right place. It did. Oh, it's because this is so tall. So we have our button here, and our button styles are going to be that the color is white. That's going to be our background. Actually, our background color, let's just make it like a dark. And then we're going to create another style on top of our buttons, our regular buttons, and that's going to be button, let's say outline. So let's say we want to create a button that's transparent but has a blue outline. So let's make sure we create that color. That way we can get back to it easily. So for our button outline styles, we're going to create a border. Where's border? Border right here. We'll say 1 pixel. And the color is going to be this midnight blue color. And then we're going to get rid of the background color. So let's just make this transparent. And we need to make the text the blue color as well. Okay. So now we have sort of this outline button with blue text and a clear background. If we went and created another button, so let's just make one here, and we'll put it down in our second section. So now you can see that in section 2 we have one, it's just a regular button. So it's taking on our normal button styles. So remember, we have button, and we have to apply that button class. So it's taking on our normal button styles, and if we want to make one of them an outline button, all we have to do is add the outline class, and it preserves the same styling as all the other buttons. It's just got a transparent background with a border. So that's a way that you can create multiple styles of the same thing. So if you wanted to do an inverse button, you might take this one and do button inverse and button, you have to click enter to make it happen. So then we would do background color transparent, and we would do the color a blue, and then this one doesn't have any sort of styling. If section 2 had this blue background, it needs to be white, not transparent. Okay. So if section 2 was a dark color and this wasn't going to show up very well, then we would need to add the button inverse class. And if we get rid of that, then it's going to show our regular button styles, right? Which it's hard to see because our regular button styles are the same color as this section 2. You'd have to make that transparent again. Okay, now you can see our regular button styles. So this is a way that we can create more specificity, or we can create variants of different elements. So if you want all the elements to be the same, but you want to have a variant, then you would add a combination class to that element, or you would just add a class initially to the element to make it a little bit different than the other tags. Hopefully this is clear. There's some great articles on Mozilla Developer Network to work through, and I know this is a major part of web development, so there must be lots of different ways for you to get more information, but this is how it works inside of the Webflow environment. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. And one of the things that classes do is it helps if you export the website, it helps the developer on the other side to be able to manipulate and change different things in the CSS without having to go back to each individual element and make those changes. So that's why we have CSS classes and why they become such a powerful part of web development, because they work across an entire website. So imagine you have 1,000 pages on your website, and you have styles on each of those pages. All you have to do is attach a class to every place where you want the style in the CSS to be affected. And we used to have to do that across all 1,000 pages, and so you'd have to do sort of a find and replace and do all the inline CSS. But now we had the ability to just make the change once to a class, and it sort of changes everything all across the website as the page is loaded. So it makes large websites possible and not a headache to have to maintain and make changes to, and just makes the web a more dynamic type of place, because these things can be changed programmatically inside of JavaScript. So when someone does something, we can change CSS classes or add them or remove them. And so it gives us a lot more power over the styling and the layout and the look of a website. So use CSS classes to make changes to individual elements or groups of elements, and it will help you in the end. Okay, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, please click subscribe and click the bell, and you'll get notifications when I post new videos. Please share the video with anyone that you think it would be helpful for, and if I didn't go far enough somewhere, let me know, and we can keep adding to this series. All right, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.